People like to say that the league table never lies, but is that always true? In today's video, we're going to be trying to work out who have been the weakest sides in the Championship so far this season by looking at 10 specific underlying statistics. With how tightly congested teams are at the bottom end of the Championship, it really feels like the relegation race will run its full course this season and go right down to the wire. Even with those three sides who are sat in the bottom three right now, it's difficult to say that any of them will definitively go down because it's so close. But I'd welcome your thoughts on this one in the comments down below. So as of recording, this is how the Championship table shapes up, and for the purposes of this video, we will be focusing on those sides in and around the bottom of the table. So making up the bottom three right now, we've got Portsmouth, QPR and Hull City, but they're only a few points away from the likes of Plymouth, Cardiff, Luton, Preston, Oxford, Coventry, then you've even got the likes of Derby and Stoke maybe, who could potentially still be dragged back down into something. But the results over the weekend certainly shaped things up in and around the bottom half of the Championship. Obviously we had Borough beating Hull 3-1, Oxford and Millwall played out a 1-1 draw, QPR a point on the road away at Watford. Plymouth got another absolute battering on the road as Bristol City put 4 goals past them. Coventry against Cardiff ended 2-2. Luton really haven't been finding much joy on the road recently. They lost 4-2 against Norwich. Preston played out a 1-1 draw with West Brom. Stoke lost against Burnley, and we had that draw between Swansea and Portsmouth, obviously. I am recording this video before the Sunday game has taken place between Derby and Sheffield Wednesday, so that result won't be taken into consideration here. But let's have a look at some of the interesting underlying statistics from this season so far. So first of all, when it comes to chance creation, the weakest team in the Championship this season has been Plymouth Argyle. They've only accumulated an XG of 12.5 in their opening 18 matches, which is by far the lowest of any Championship club, obviously. Plymouth are a really weird team whereby at home they tend to get into some good goal scoring areas, but away from home that never seems to be the case, and being this far adrift at the bottom of the table in terms of chance creation really is worrying going forward. While they're not necessarily amongst the lowest scorers in the division so far this season, you know, they have scored 17 goals, those underlying numbers will catch up to you eventually. But when it actually comes to hitting the back of the net, it's actually been QPR who have been the weakest team in the Championship this far into the campaign. They've only scored 13 goals. Now, they have also had a couple of own goals which have gone their way. Own goals aren't counted on this table here, but in terms of goals that a team has actually scored for themselves, QPR have been by far the weakest side in the league so far this season in that regard. Obviously, it was another blank they fired over the weekend in that goalless draw against Watford, and it always feels like if you can't score and you're in a relegation dogfight at the bottom of the table, that's always a recipe for disaster. Other teams who have struggled to score many so far this season, you've also got the likes of Swansea, Hull, Cardiff as well, and the likes of Preston, Portsmouth and Plymouth all averaging less than a goal per game at the moment as well. Now when it comes to the opposite end of the pitch defensively, who's conceding the most chances right now? Once again, we've got Plymouth Argyle as the weakest side in the league. They've conceded a higher XG than any other Championship club up until this point, and I mean, while they currently sit outside of the bottom three because of the points they've accumulated, these underlying statistics under Wayne Rooney so far are really concerning long term, because generally speaking, over the course of a full Championship season, these numbers tend to catch up with you. They've conceded an XG of 35 in their opening 18 matches, which is way more than the likes of Stoke, Oxford, Watford, Cardiff, Portsmouth have, who are also among the sides who have conceded a lot of chances this far. And unsurprisingly, when it comes to the team who's conceded the most goals this season, of course it's Plymouth Argyle, once again way out in front with the most goals conceded this far into the campaign. If you contrast the defensive records of Plymouth right now, and let's say Burnley, who have been absolutely impenetrable at the back, I mean, it's absolutely night and day, isn't it? Interestingly though, when it comes to the most wasteful teams in the Championship, that accolade actually goes to Swansea City, who have underperformed their XG by 7.5 goals this far into the campaign, which is more than any other Championship sides. Other teams who have been really wasteful in the final third, you've also got QPR, Hull City, Sheffield Wednesday, Millwall, all among the most wasteful teams in the league. West Brom you could also throw in there as well, who have underperformed their XG by 3 goals, but way out in front as the top 2 most wasteful sides, and you probably throw Hull into that equation as well. These 3 teams teams here, despite actually getting themselves into some good areas, it's often been the quality in the final third which has let them down. Now, when you're in a relegation dogfight, what can make the world of difference is whether or not you're good at set pieces. That's certainly been the case for Derby so far this season, who have scored way more set pieces than any other Championship club. But looking at the opposite end of the table, these teams here have been the worst so far in terms of scoring goals from set piece situations. You've got Plymouth and Norwich, who have been statistically the two worst sides in this department. They've only scored from 2 set piece situations each. You've also got the likes of Swansea, Sheffield Wednesday, Burnley, Bristol City and Leeds, who haven't been that profitable from set pieces either. They've only scored from 3 set piece situations. So if you want to turn the needle, look to get a slight advantage on your opponents. This is something that teams can look into. I'm pretty sure every team these days has a specific set piece coach. These are the teams that need to brush up on those skills, it would seem. Another big killer for teams in and around the relegation zone is whether or not you can actually score goals from open play. Norwich have been the best team in the league so far this season when it comes to goals from open play. The weakest sides in the league, you've got the likes of Derby, QPR and Cardiff. Now, counter-attack goals do count as open play goals as well. So far this season, only 7 of Derby's goals have actually come from open play, which isn't great reading. Obviously, that could change today when they play Sheffield Wednesday, but generally speaking, that's been the story of their season so far. They have been pretty reliant on scoring from set pieces, and I mean, that's also applicable to the likes of QPR and Cardiff so far. Now, when it comes to the form table, I've picked out the last 10 or so matches for most Championship clubs here. The weakest side in the league over those last 10 matches has been Hull City, and going off this recent form, which has been absolutely dismal for the Tigers, it's no real surprise they went ahead and made the change managerially when they decided to bin off Tim Volta. In their last 10 matches, they've only scored 5 goals and they've conceded 17 during that time, taking just 3 points from those last 10 matches. And I mean, in this time period, they're the only team in the Championship who's not won any of their last 10. But in terms of the recent form book, you've also got the likes of Oxford, QPR, Plymouth and Portsmouth, who have been struggling to pick up points on a regular basis. Portsmouth, to be fair, have played 2 games less than these other sides during that period. So over the last 10 games, you've only got Plymouth, QPR, Oxford and Hull, who've been averaging less than a point per game, which is relegation form. I thought this was an interesting table to look at, especially with the teams in and around the bottom of the Championship. So this is the amount of points every Championship club has taken after falling behind in a match. And so far this season, you've got Derby, Millwall, Stoke, Sunderland, Preston and Swansea, who are yet to win a match in the Championship this season when they've fallen behind in a match, which is a pretty damning statistic, to be honest with you. Maybe it shows a bit of a weaker mentality with some of these clubs, that when they do go behind in a match, they struggle to fight their way back into it. I mean, it's an absolutely incredible statistic here from Swansea. They've gone behind in 7 of their matches so far this season, and they've picked up no points from any of those games. Preston have had a pretty bad record when falling behind in games as well, only taking 1 point. Coincidentally, that came over the weekend when we got back into that one against West Brom. And on the flip side of that, I also thought this was an interesting table. This is points after taking the lead in a match. So these have been the best teams in the Championship at taking points after they get themselves into a leading position. But on the flip side, you've got Luton and Oxford at the bottom of this table right now, who, I mean, in Luton's case, despite leading in 9 of their matches so far this season, they've gone on to lose 3 of them. Oxford have been leading in 8 of their matches this season. They've gone on to lose 3 of those matches. When you get yourselves into a leading position, you can't hold on to 3 points. It's a bad sign. For Luton especially, who were leading at one point in that game over the weekend against Norwich, to go on and lose it 4-2, the reaction of the away crowd wasn't great, understandably so, at full time. That's a big worry for them going forward. But after looking at some of those underlying statistics, I'd be interested to know from you guys, who do you think has been the weakest team in the Championship so far this season? If you had to make up your bottom 3 right now, who would you throw into it? But other than that, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and get all your thoughts in the comments down below. Other than that though, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.